Okay, so today we're going to make pumpkin pie.
In the pressure cooker. It's a super awesome way to make it. It stays nice and moist and tender.
Right, and it is a nice smaller size. This is a 7-inch springform pan. You can also make it in a push pan.
Yeah, usually a 6-inch push pan fits a little better in a 6-quart Instant Pot.
I'm Barbara.
I'm Jen.
And we're pressure cooking today.
All right, so let's get started. First things first, you want to grease your pan. Just make sure that the crust releases really nice and easy when you're ready to serve it. It's a little step, but you don't want to forget it, so I always do it at the beginning so I don't get distracted by the cooking. So just a nice generous spray around the bottom and around the edges. And then I just use a little paper towel to make sure it's in all the creases real good and so there's not pools anywhere.
So with this recipe, we're going to make a cookie crust with Pecan Sandies, which pairs really great with the pumpkin filling.
We don't use a traditional pie crust in the pressure cooker. It won't bake up nice and flaky and tender, so these cookie crusts are a great alternative. It's our go-to, and I actually like them better this way.
Yeah, if you don't like the Pecan Sandies, you could use a regular graham cracker, but
wafers.
We really like it, and we actually add more pecans. So we've toasted up 1/3 of a cup of pecans, and we're just going to add them to our Pecan Sandies here in our mini food processor. So this makes the crust really easy. You're just going to pulse it until you've got some nice crumbs. What do you think, Jen?
Good. If you're like me and you don't have a fancy food processor at home, you can always just put them in a plastic bag and smash them, or give them to your kids to smash. They like that. I'll usually dice my nuts a little bit before I start that, just because they don't smash quite as easy, but it works out really nice.
And I love this little mini chopper, so I can even just mix the butter in right there in the pot. So
the butter works as a binder to help keep those cookie crumbs together, so it's a nice little addition. Plus it adds a little bit of butter flavor, which is...
Yeah, it's only 2 tablespoons of melted butter.
But you can already see it kind of becoming more together, what's the right word, Mom?
Crumbly.
It looks a lot more sandy when you do it.
Sandy, that's the perfect word, more sandy. Okay, so that's all there is to it. We're going to dump it in.
Mom has this little handy-dandy tart tamper. It's like a couple bucks on Amazon. If you don't have one of those, a shot glass or just a regular glass works great. I like to push it just straight down into the bottom. Mom likes to do it about 1 inch up the sides. It's up to you. I just like to get it nice and flat. I'll let you do the side pushing.
Yeah, so you just want to make sure it's all the way to the edges so that it seals up and doesn't let any filling seep down under your crust. And then if you want to do an edge, you just kind of push it towards the edges a little bit. Just work it towards the edge, round in a circle.
When you take the edge off the springform pan, doing it up the edge has a little bit more rustic look. It's not ever going to be that nice even flat that you'd get.
But you don't want to take it up very far. You want the filling to cover the edge.
Otherwise, if the filling doesn't cover the edge, the filling can become a little bit soggy in the pressure cooker. So, Mom's got it all nice and fancy.
That looks pretty good,
yeah.
Huh?
And check out you can see the texture. It's got a really nice, you can see the nuts mixed in there. It looks really good. It works out great. It's delicious.
So you want to put your crust into the freezer.
About 10 minutes, usually just the amount of time it takes for you to make the filling. It's not an exact science.
The butter will firm up, get solid so that it holds the crust together. When you pour on the filling, you don't want any of the crust to
rise up
and mix into it. All right, so now we're going to make the pumpkin pie filling.
Number one thing, make sure with your pumpkin you're using the 100% pure pumpkin. They have 2 cans usually in the grocery store, pure pumpkin and pumpkin pie filling. The pumpkin pie filling's already spiced.
Right, and has other ingredients. So that's not what you want for this recipe. You just want the pumpkin filling, and you want evaporated milk. Sometimes people get confused between sweetened condensed milk, which does not go in this recipe, and evaporated milk.
So oftentimes when people have trouble with the recipe, these are the #1 reasons why. Make sure it's pure pumpkin, make sure it's evaporated milk.
So we're gonna start with our sugar, and we're gonna add our pumpkin pie spice. It comes already pre-mixed. If you wanna make your own, We have a little recipe for that, and then some sugar.
Salt.
Some salt. So we're going to mix this together now before you add your wet ingredients, and that just helps so if there's any lumps in your brown sugar, helps break that up.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. That's all it really needs.
And it really smells like pumpkin pie right now, the cinnamon and the...
Right, and so now we're just going to add the rest of the ingredients. So go ahead and add your pumpkin. And I'll add the evaporated milk.
And then do you want to mix those a little bit, or do you just add the egg all at the
Just
same
go
time?
ahead and add the egg.
All at the same time.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay, and we have the egg already beaten just to help prevent, like, make sure it's nice and evenly incorporated. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that looks pretty good. So you can see how quick and easy it comes together. It's a little bit thicker than a traditional pumpkin pie because you don't get any evaporation when you bake it in the pressure cooker.
And it's not like cheesecake. A lot of the principles are the same where you beat together all the ingredients, but you don't have to worry about overbeating this too much. You don't want to go crazy, but it's not nearly as finicky as a cheesecake.
Right, so we'll go ahead and get the crust out of the freezer. Okay, so we got our crust out of the freezer. Now we're just going to pour our filling right on top.
For this, we're using a OXO sling. You can use any sling you need. The OXO sling we like because it has a built-in trivet, but you can use the trivet that came with your pressure cooker. In a pinch, you can use mason jar rings at the bottom of your underneath and use that as a trivet.
I like to just kind of smush it around a little bit, make sure it's nice and flat on top.
And then it goes right to the edges on all the sides. That's important. Okay, now we're going to cover it with aluminum foil. You just want to center it around your pot. Nice tight seal. Pull down all the edges. The foil will keep the condensation from
the
letting-
lid just dropping down on the pot. And with a cheesecake, it's not as important, but it stays prettier on a pumpkin pie.
Yes, and so because we're using foil, the cook time will be a little bit longer than if we weren't.
And on this trivet, it just locks up on top.
So we already have a sling ready to go. So before I add my thing, I always want to make sure that I add the water to the bottom, just so I don't forget.
Before you add your
Trivet.
trivet
Yep.
and the pie.
So if you're using a metal trivet, pour the water in, add the trivet now. And then if you don't have a trivet sling combo, just use aluminum foil as a sling. And just place it inside the pressure cooker. Make sure the sling is folded down so it doesn't interfere with the closing of the lid.
Make sure your gasket's in place.
Yep, everything's good there. And lock it in place.
This
So-
has a 35-minute cook time with a 10-minute natural crust release.
So we'll be back when it's ready.
Okay, so while that other one is cooking, I made this one ahead of time so we could show you how to go ahead and finish it up.
So this one is made in a push pan, which is different than the springform pan we have. The springform pan has a little clasp at the edge that you loosen. With the push pan, you want to just, before it cools, like once it's out, you let it cool, and it'll start to pull away from the edge, as you can see here. You just kind of use your thin spatula to go around the edge, just to make sure that you don't have pumpkin pie stuck to the edge that will pull apart and crack when you finish it. Does that look about right, Mom? Okay, so we did that. And then with the push pan, I like to have a nice big can. The pure pumpkin works great. It's got this little narrow lip on the bottom. You want to just center it so that lip is over there.
This top part will go down.
Push it down. Nope. It's a pretty pie. And then do you want to take it off from up here? How do you want to do
We
that,
can
Mom?
just leave it right there, and now you just have to separate that from the
bottom of the push pan, that metal piece on the bottom of the push pan.
crust.
If you have, Mom's using a large spatula. If you don't have that, a nice long knife works really well. Just go slow and steady so that you don't accidentally cut up into the crust, but just kind of work it around. If you want to, there's no rule that says you have to remove it before you serve it.
Right, you can just serve it right off this. We wanted to plate it up pretty on the
Yeah, I like to transfer it just so
platter.
that I don't cut into my springform or my push pan. That's my main reason for transferring it, but you don't have to. There you go.
I know you hold it
I
there.
hold it here. You're gonna transfer it. You got it.
There we go. All right, I'll get that out of the way. I'm gonna just wash my hands real quick, and then we'll put some whipped cream around the edges and decorate it with
nuts.
some crushed pecans.
If I'm just serving it for my family, I like to cut it before I decorate it. I think it's easier to cut it. For me, it cuts a little cleaner if I cut it up and then decorate each individual one. But if you're taking it somewhere, it looks really nice to bring it over all fancy. Mom has a pastry bag with a round tip. I don't know, what do you call it? It's not a star tip. You can use a star tip if you want to, just whatever look you're going for. If you want, you can do one big dot in the middle, but I kind of like the look of the little tiny blobs around the edge. It's not the fancy term. What's the fancy term?
Blob sounds good to me.
Blobs.
Put another one right there. Okay.
And just sprinkle with pecans along the blobs or in the middle, Mom?
Well, I like if it's a little bit finer bits, I'll put it along the edges. Maybe some more of the chunky ones are in the middle.
And this is all optional. If you want to just dig in with a spoon, go for it.
Actually, my husband prefers you to cut him a slice, put it on a plate, and then he can put a big old scoop of whipped cream on it.
That's Dad.
That's Dad. All right. Should we cut a slice and serve it up?
So one of the tips for cutting a slice, we like a big serrated knife that can go a good ways in. And we also like to get it warm, like warm water and then wipe it off between cuts. Is that?
Yeah, that really helps.